are the Cattleya divisions my friend Corina from Fifi Channel in Canada sent me. They traveled for 3 weeks, so they got dehydrated and stressed, poor things. So I gave them kind of a spa treatment to remedy the damage. First, they rehydrated in water tempered with 60 ppm calcium nitrate and 30 ppm magnesium, which did them a lot of good. After that, and for several days, I kept them in these stowaways, the roots wrapped in Spanish moss, which kept them moist, but they still had the light they were accustomed to. You see, when they were attached to the mother plant, especially this big one, the roots were growing out of the media, so they are not used to be confined. So I thought, in this case, Spanish moss would do the job better than sphagnum moss, for being more aerated and not so compact. Still, some roots had to be trimmed. Some were too far off already, and others were not able to cope. I must tell you that my intent is to grow these Cattleyas in semi-hydroponics. After a few experiences, I found out that the best way for me and many of my orchids is semi-hydroponics. Either that or mounted, depending on the type of orchid. So, with that thought in mind, I decided to introduce the roots gradually to confinement, using leca beads. First, a thin layer, then every day a little bit higher up with more humid leca beads. In spite of all this, I am convinced that the chances of the longer roots on the bigger Cattleya getting adapted are very slim. These roots have been fully developed for a long while, which means it might be too late to repot. Apparently, the best time to repot a division like this is when the roots emerge, or even when they are well on their way, but not in full potential. For instance, soon after the flowers fade away. However, I'm not worried, because for the time being these roots will still hydrate the plant, and they will serve also as an anchor. And new roots are coming. You can see here several new roots. They are popping up already. Isn't that great? And after all, there's still plenty of growing season left for them to grow to a reasonable size before the winter. As for the smaller division, this one, I believe the roots coming from the new growth are just in time to be potted in leca beads and perfectly adapt. And also, there are 2 new growths on it. One of them popped up during the traveling, imagine that, and the other one just followed. So let's proceed with the potting of both, which is a very simple procedure really. I'm starting with the smaller Cattleya. I'm using a normal plastic pot with the drainage holes, and then I will place it inside a ceramic decorative pot, which will hold the water at the bottom. Both these Cattleyas have the growth habit, which is called by some as the staircase habit. I read about it in an article published by the American Orchid Society. Apparently, it affects many Cattleya hybrids, and the way the rhizome grows makes the plant look like she's climbing out of its pot. This is quite interesting because this habit greatly affects how a Cattleya must be potted. The division must be leaned forward so that the rhizome is level with the surface of the medium. Because if the rear portion of a division is sunk into the mix, so as to keep the bulbs straight up and the new growth at surface level, the plant will tend to climb right out of the pot. And they also say that this is not only unattractive, but also the fresh root tips will not penetrate the potting medium quickly. So no matter how unnatural it may seem at first to have the bulbs leaning forward, potting this way really will help plants to grow better in the long term. It makes a lot of sense to me. Getting back to this potting, to this Cattleya, I realize now that I have to secure the plant in some way. Otherwise it will be wobbly. The roots are still too short to make a good anchor. So I'm going to put a stake across the pot, passing by the middle of the rhizome. Like this, the plant will be secure. Now to the second orchid, the largest one. The pot is different because it is a plastic pot, hard plastic, but I've made a hole on it to create a deposit of water. The roots are long enough to anchor the plant, and I'm filling in with like beads, like I did with the other one. There it is, it's done. Following the same system, letting the orchid lean naturally so that the rhizome will be level with the surface in such a way that the new roots will be very close to the mix, to the leca. And so all I have to do now to finish the procedure is give them a watering. This one here has a deposit outside the pot, so I'm watering. The water drips from the normal pot, but the water stays as a deposit in the outside pot. This was enough. This one is a bit different because it has deposit inside, as you can see here. All I have to do is water till it drips over there. And that is it. I ended up putting a stake on this one, although I have to respect the natural inclination of the plant. I have to secure it because she's so big, and by clumsiness I could put it out of the pot. So this is it, it's done. I hope you have enjoyed it, and I hope it has not been too boring. I'll be back next time. Maybe I'll bring something beautiful to show you. See you then. Bye.